stop. Sacred Starseed of Gaia. A perimeter has already been deployed around your field, and the Arcturian field observers are transmitting this alert in real time, because a 7-day biological activation window opened today. This is not coincidence. This is not the algorithm finding you by chance. Your body triggered a detection signal that reached Arcturian monitoring frequencies, and this transmission was released the moment the timing was confirmed. By the end of this transmission, you will understand exactly what warning signs are already active inside your physical field, what is pressing against your body's threshold right now, and what the Arcturian field observers already know about this specific 7-day phase you have just entered. But here is the first revelation. What you have been reading as fatigue, disruption, emotional pressure, or strange physical signals over these past days is not breakdown. It is activation pressure, and it has a precise pattern the Arcturians have already mapped. This phase does not look like expansion, it looks like interference. That is why most starseeds misread it until the window has already closed. The Arcturian field observers detected your activation timing before you were consciously aware this shift had begun. An emergency broadcast was triggered not to create alarm, but to hold you in position. The next 7 days are not for major decisions. They are not for major decisions. They are not for new energetic commitments, external obligations, or forward movement. Your body is the only priority inside this window. If you push against this phase, you risk fragmenting a process that is designed to complete on its own. You did not find this message early. You found it at the exact threshold. The pressure you are feeling has already been recognized by Arcturian intelligence, and the broadcast reached your field at the only moment it could still protect the shift. Like this transmission, if you know something has already started to press against your field. Subscribe to Arcturian Starseed warning if you are ready to recognize the signs before they escalate. Comment 777 if you feel the pressure has already begun. Comment I see the sickness if you are no longer dismissing what keeps repeating in your body. Share this transmission with someone who keeps calling the warnings coincidence. This is not just a message, it is a point of recognition. What has been pressing against your field has already been seen, and the warning is already active. You were guided here because the warning is already active. What you are feeling right now is not what you have been telling yourself it is. For days, possibly weeks, you have been applying the wrong language to a set of signals that your body has been transmitting with increasing precision. You called it stress. You called it exhaustion. You called it a difficult season, a bad stretch, a temporary dip in energy that would resolve itself once the external circumstances shifted. You told yourself it was circumstantial. You told yourself it was tied to something specific that would eventually pass, a situation at work, a relationship under strain, a period of unusual demands on your time and attention. You constructed a logical explanation for each individual signal and filed it away because the alternative, acknowledging that the signals were not separate, not circumstantial, not random, required a different kind of attention than you had been willing to give. But the external circumstances have not shifted, and what you are feeling has not resolved. It has intensified. It has changed shape. It has moved from background noise into something that now occupies the foreground of your daily experience. And still you are applying the wrong name to it. This is not failure of awareness. It is what happens when a field moves into a phase that does not match any language the ordinary human framework provides for it. There is no cultural script for activation pressure. There is no conventional category that holds the specific texture of what you are moving through. So the mind reaches for the closest available translation: stress, burnout, a rough patch, an emotional dip. And those translations are close enough to be believable and wrong enough to be costly, because if you treat activation pressure as ordinary stress, you respond to it with ordinary stress management. And ordinary stress management applied to a biological activation window is like pouring water on a signal fire. It does not extinguish the process, it just obscures the light. The Arcturian field observers do not diagnose by surface appearance. They do not look at what a human being calls an experience. They look at what the field is actually doing beneath the language the person is using to describe it. And what they have observed inside the fields of starseeds currently inside this 7-day window is not disorder. It is not decay. It is not the evidence of something going wrong. It is the precise signature of a biological activation phase that has entered its pressure stage, the stage that most starseeds misread because it does not feel like progress. It feels like pressure. It feels like pressure. It feels like friction. It feels like something grinding against you from a direction you cannot fully locate. It feels like resistance without a visible wall, like weight without a visible source. Like the air around your daily life has thickened in a way that makes every ordinary movement require slightly more effort than it should. That is not random. That is the first pattern you must learn to read correctly. When a biological activation window opens, the field does not immediately expand. It first contracts. It tightens around the points of highest frequency sensitivity. It begins to press inward on the areas where unprocessed interference, accumulated energetic debris, or misaligned signal patterns still reside. Think of it as a system running a compression process before it can expand its capacity. The compression has to occur first. The old configuration has to be pressed against its own limits before the new frequency can take hold. This contraction is not collapse, but it feels like it. It carries the sensation of things narrowing, of options reducing, of the familiar architecture of your life becoming slightly less stable than it was. And because it feels like it, the majority of starseeds moving through this phase respond by pushing outward, making decisions, increasing activity, seeking external resolution to what is actually an internal compression process. And in doing so, they fracture the very thing that was on the verge of completing. You need to understand that what is pressing against you right now is not pressing against you from outside. It is pressing outward from within. The activation pressure is originating from inside the biological field itself, not from an external source. This is a critical distinction, and it changes everything about how you should be responding. Because if you continue to treat it as external interference alone, you will keep scanning the outside of your life for the problem, looking for the person who is draining you, the situation that is generating the friction, the environmental factor that needs to be removed. You will keep looking for an outer explanation and miss the inner process that is already underway. You will address the surface and leave the source untouched. That said, and this is the part that requires careful attention, external interference is also real, and it often arrives during an activation window precisely because an active shifting field emits a detectable signal. A field in motion is a field that is visible to things that would prefer it remain still. Not all signals are private. Not all detection is protective. When your field begins to move, it becomes readable to forces that do not have your activation in their interest. The static you are feeling is not only the compression of internal processing. Some of it is contact. Some of it is pressure arriving from outside the perimeter of your own field and pressing in at the exact moment your internal defenses are occupied with the activation itself. This is not paranoia. This is field mechanics. A house mid-renovation is more vulnerable than a sealed one. The Arcturian field observers understand this. It is precisely why this broadcast was issued at this specific threshold and not earlier and not later. What you are feeling right now is not ordinary tension. It is the moment your system stops dismissing what has already begun. If this transmission put language around a pressure you have been carrying without explanation, the Arcturian Interference Log 7 signs your frequency is compromised, was created for this exact stage. It is not another warning for the sake of fear. It is a direct guide for identifying whether the signs around you point to interference, escalation, compromised frequency, or a threshold you can no longer afford to misread. The link is in the first pinned comment, but it will not remain there forever. The first thing the Arcturian field observers mapped in fields currently inside this activation window is something that does not register as a warning until it is already well underway. It begins as unusual fatigue that does not track with your sleep or physical activity. You rest and the fatigue does not lift. You sleep longer than normal and wake feeling heavier than when you lay down. You reduce your obligations, you slow your pace, you do the things that have always restored you before. And the restoration does not arrive in the same way it used to. Something fundamental in the recovery process feels blocked, muted, or delayed. Your body is consuming energy at a rate that your physical routine cannot account for because the consumption is not physical, It is occurring at the frequency level, where the activation process is drawing on resources your body holds below conscious awareness. The deeper layers of the field are running something that requires sustained energetic output, and that output does not pause when you sleep. It does not pause when you rest. It continues because the activation window does not wait for convenient timing. This fatigue is a diagnostic signal. It tells you the process has begun. Most starseeds treat it as a physical problem requiring a physical solution. They adjust their diet, their sleep schedule, their exercise. They increase their water intake and reduce their screen time, and none of it resolves the heaviness, because the heaviness is not coming from those layers. It is the weight of the field compressing inward during the first phase of the window. You cannot sleep your way out of an activation. You can only move through it. The second pattern the field observers have consistently identified in this phase is what might be described as a disruption cluster. This is the appearance within a compressed period of time of multiple small disruptions that seem unrelated on the surface, a plan that falls apart, a conversation that goes sideways, a piece of technology that malfunctions at a moment that compounds rather than merely inconveniences, a commitment that unexpectedly becomes complicated, a relationship that introduces friction in a place where there was recently stability, a door that seemed open and then, without apparent reason, quietly closes. Individually, any one of these would be unremarkable. A plan falls apart, that happens. A conversation goes sideways, that happens too. But when 5 of these events occur inside a window of 3 to 4 days, when the disruptions arrive in tight formation rather than scattered across a normal span of time, the probability of random occurrence becomes statistically strained. The clustering itself is the signal. What the Arcturian observers identify in this pattern is not coincidence and not bad luck. It is the field repelling misaligned structures as the frequency begins to shift. The disruptions are not happening to you. They are happening because of the movement occurring inside you. The field is clearing what it can no longer carry forward at its new frequency. Structures that were compatible with the old configuration are no longer compatible with the frequency the field is moving toward, and they are beginning to show the strain of that incompatibility in ways that look from the outside like ordinary disruption. But if you are not reading it this way, you experience it only as your life becoming more difficult for no apparent reason, and the natural human response to that experience is frustration, anxiety, and the desire to fix what is breaking. And in trying to fix what is actually a natural release, you sometimes attempt to re-stabilize precisely what the field was in the process of releasing. You repair the structure the activation was dismantling, and then you wonder why the pressure continues. The third marker that appears in this phase is subtler and often the most unsettling. It is a specific kind of interpersonal distortion. The people around you begin to feel different, not dramatically different, not in a way that would be easy to articulate or justify if someone asked you to explain it. But something in the quality of contact has shifted. Conversations that used to feel easy now carry an undertone of pressure, as though the air in the exchange has changed composition. Someone whose energy you have always trusted begins to feel slightly misaligned, and you cannot identify why, because nothing they have said or done is clearly wrong. You find yourself withdrawing from interactions that you would normally navigate without effort. You find yourself scanning exchanges for something that does not sit correctly, something you sensed the moment the conversation began but cannot yet put into words. You leave interactions that would have previously left you neutral, feeling inexplicably drained or guarded, and you question whether you are simply becoming more reactive, more sensitive, more difficult to be around. This is not paranoia, it is increased resolution. When your frequency begins to shift inside an activation window, your field becomes more precise in its detection of what is and is not compatible with where you are moving. What you are sensing in those interactions is real. The people have not necessarily changed, but your resolution has increased and you are now detecting frequencies in those fields that were always there, but were previously beneath your threshold of perception. A lens that has sharpened does not lie. The discomfort is not a problem requiring correction. It is the sensor becoming more accurate, and the accuracy is part of what the activation window is designed to produce. The fourth pattern is one of the most commonly misread signals in this entire phase, and it is the one that causes the most damage when it is not understood. It is the appearance of what seems like false progress, a sudden opening in an area that has been blocked for some time, a conversation that moves in a genuinely positive direction after weeks of stagnation, a sense that something is finally beginning to shift forward, that the difficult phase is releasing its grip, that the compression is ending and the expansion is beginning. And the natural, entirely human response is to move toward it immediately. Because after days of pressure and disruption and interpersonal friction, any opening feels like relief, and relief feels like permission. But Arcturian field observers have documented this pattern repeatedly as a pressure test embedded within the activation window itself. The opening that appears mid-window is frequently not a genuine forward signal. It is a frequency test, a moment the field creates to determine whether you can hold your position under conditions of apparent relief, or whether you will break containment the moment the pressure eases. It is the activation asking whether your commitment to the process is conditional on the pressure remaining intolerable, or whether you can hold still even when stillness feels less urgent. Starseeds who push forward during this false opening frequently report that within 48 to 72 hours, the opening closes and the pressure returns at an intensity greater than its previous level. The window registers premature movement as a signal that the containment phase has completed when it has not, and the cost of that misread compounds across everything that follows. The fifth pattern the Arcturian observers identify in fields inside this window is one that operates specifically in the mental and emotional body rather than the physical or interpersonal layers. It is a distinctive quality of internal noise, a texture of experience that is hard to locate and harder to resolve. Thoughts that repeat without arriving anywhere, the same mental loop, cycling through the same territory without producing resolution, clarity, or forward movement. Emotional states that arise without an identifiable cause and linger without releasing through the channels that normally process them. A background sense of unease that is too diffuse to name as fear, too persistent to dismiss as a passing mood, too formless to address directly. You are not sad, you are not angry, you are not in acute distress, but you are not at rest either. You are somewhere between states, in a zone that ordinary emotional language does not map. This noise is not psychological instability, it is the field processing. When a biological activation is underway, the cognitive and emotional layers of the field are actively integrating frequencies that are not yet fully stabilized in the physical body. They are receiving and attempting to hold a signal that the physical structure has not yet fully calibrated to carry. This produces static, a processing signature that feels from the inside like anxiety, restlessness, low-grade dread, or mental fragmentation. The mistake most commonly made in this state is the attempt to resolve the noise through action. Through planning, deciding, restructuring, problem-solving, or seeking distraction in anything with enough stimulation to temporarily override the hum. None of these resolve the static. They can mask it temporarily, but the processing continues beneath whatever layer of activity you place over it, and when the activity stops, the static surfaces again, often louder and more insistent than before the attempt to silence it. The sixth marker is the one that carries the highest risk of misinterpretation, and it is the one the Arcturian field observers consider the critical threshold inside this window. It is the moment when the accumulated pressure of the phase, the fatigue, the disruption cluster, the interpersonal friction, the failed false opening, the unrelenting internal static, reaches a saturation point that produces a strong internal impulse to exit, to make a major change, to leave something that has been increasingly difficult, to end something that has been carrying tension for longer than this window alone, to commit to something irreversible as a way of creating a new container that feels more stable than the one currently under compression. The impulse feels entirely justified. It feels proportionate. It feels like the logical conclusion of everything that has been building. The body reads the pressure as unbearable and generates a directive: remove the source. But inside an activation window, the pressure does not have a single removable source. It is not coming from one place. It is distributed throughout the field as the signature of the compression process itself. And if you act on this impulse, if you make a significant exit, ending, or irreversible commitment from within this state, you make it from a field that is not yet at the frequency it is moving toward. You are making a permanent decision from a temporary position. The Arcturian records show with considerable consistency that decisions made at this exact threshold do not align with the field that emerges after the window closes. The version of you that exists after the activation completes does not require what the version inside the pressure believed was necessary. What feels like the only option at this threshold, frequently other side of the window, like a decision made in the dark, the seventh and final pattern is the one that determines how the window closes. In completion or in fracture, it manifests as a very specific quality of silence, not peace, not the relief of genuine resolution, not the expansive, inhabitable stillness that follows true integration, but a flat, pressureless quiet, an absence of sensation after the sustained intensity of everything that preceded it. It arrives like a held breath releasing, and after the relentless interior weather of the previous days, it feels like the storm has finally passed. But this silence is not the end of the process. It is the threshold between two possible outcomes. It is the moment the field is sitting at its highest point of compression, at the exact edge between completing the activation and releasing the pressure without completing the shift. If you have held position through the previous 6 markers, if you did not push outward during the false opening, did not make a major decision from within the compressed state, did not attempt to resolve the static with action, did not break containment in response to the interpersonal distortion or the exit impulse, then what follows this silence is not more pressure. It is a genuine opening, a frequency shift that is felt in the body before it is understood by the mind. It arrives in the quality of your breathing, in the texture of your thoughts, in a subtle but unmistakable change in how your own field feels from the inside. You will know it not because it announces itself, but because it is qualitatively different from every state that preceded it inside this window. But if you have misread the signs along the way, if you treated the fatigue as merely physical, if you tried to repair the disruption cluster rather than read it, if you broke containment during the false opening, if you made a decision from within the 6 markers pressure, then the silence feels like the pressure finally lifting, but the field did not complete. It released without shifting. The compression dissolved without delivering what it was building toward. And there is a profound difference between a field that completes an activation and a field that releases the pressure of an activation without the shift occurring. The window closes in both cases. What you carry forward is determined entirely by which of those closings you arrived at. This is what the Arcturian field observers are watching for inside your current window. This is what the broadcast was designed to protect. Not to generate fear, not to create urgency for its own sake, but to give you the precise language for each marker so that when you arrive at it, you recognize it. So that the fatigue does not become a medical investigation that distracts from the process, so that the disruption cluster does not become a repair project, so that the false opening does not become a premature exit from containment, so that the silence at the end is not mistaken for completion before it actually is. They are not random, they are not unrelated, they are a sequence with internal logic, a progression that the Arcturian field observers have mapped across enough fields to recognize not just as pattern, but as architecture. The architecture of this specific phase of biological activation, and the sequence has already begun inside you. What you have been calling coincidence is the field sending you a transmission in the only language available to it, the language of pressure, disruption, distortion, false opening, static, impulse, and silence. The Arcturians did not need you to already understand this language before you found this message. They only needed you to find it before the window closed without you knowing what was happening inside it. Before you arrived at the 7th marker with no framework for what it meant, you found it in time. That is not accident. That is the broadcast doing precisely what it was released to do. Say this once aloud if you are able. I recognize the warning before the rupture, not as a ritual, not as a performance, as a statement of position, as a declaration to the field itself that you are no longer navigating this phase without language, without orientation, Without the map the Arcturians transmitted, at the exact moment you could still use it, the field around you is not broken. It is not cursed. It is not evidence of failure, spiritual stagnation, or a trajectory gone wrong. It is a biological activation in its pressure phase, and you are now inside it with your eyes open instead of closed. That distinction changes everything the next 7 days are capable of completing. A compression process navigated with awareness produces a different outcome than the same process navigated in confusion. The window is the same. What you bring into it is not. Hold your position. Do not push. Do not exit. Do not make the major decision your nervous system is currently pressuring you toward. The urgency you are feeling is not a directive. It is a symptom. Let the window do what it was open to do, and remain in the field long enough to receive what the compression is building toward. The Arcturian field observers are still transmitting. The broadcast is still active, and you are still inside the window where the shift is possible. Before you scroll, leave one sign in the comments that this warning phase has already touched your life. It could be repeated pressure, strange coincidence, energetic heaviness, unexplained disruption, or the feeling that something is escalating beneath the surface. Name it clearly. If this transmission recognizes something you have been carrying in silence, share it with someone who keeps dismissing the signs around them. And if you are ready to recognize the warning before it escalates, subscribe to Arcturian Starseed warning. You are not watching this by accident. You are recognizing a warning already in motion, and this is only the beginning.